Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to Mrs. Vandu's Math Movies. This is Lesson 7-4 for Course 3, Classifying Triangles and Quadrilaterals. Our objectives are simply to classify triangles and quadrilaterals. Okay, so when we look at triangles, we actually have two ways to classify them. I'm actually going to draw a line, and the first three we'll talk about classifying by angles. And then the second three would be by congruent sides. Okay, and anyway, so here we go. If you look at our first triangle and we look at the angles here, this is an acute triangle because it has three acute angles. Remember, acute angles are angles which are smaller than 90 degrees, basically. We have an obtuse triangle because it has one obtuse angle. This angle up there is obtuse. And finally, we have a right triangle because it has one right angle in it. So that's pretty straightforward. If you know your angles and what to look for, it's pretty easy to classify triangles by angles. By sides, we see these little hash marks again marking congruence. So this would be called an equilateral triangle. And that's because it has three congruent sides. Our second triangle has two congruent sides. It's an isosceles triangle. And again, that one, it's kind of an interesting word. I always think of it, there's one isolated side and two others that are congruent. So isosceles. Our third is a scalene triangle, and it has no congruent sides. So pretty straightforward on these. You just have to remember your names. These are equilateral, I think is pretty easy. Equi meaning equal, lateral meaning sides. But the isosceles and scalene are two that you're going to need to figure out. Little tricks to remember. Isosceles, again, is like isolated, one side. That's how I remember it. Okay, and now we have our quadrilateral family. Okay. So first of all, a quadrilateral simply has four sides. And then from that, we branch off in a couple of directions. We'll go to the right here first because this one is unique. A trapezoid has exactly one pair of parallel sides. Okay, so quadrilateral has four. Trapezoid has parallel sides. These little arrow-looking things are used to represent parallel. So here are the top and the bottom are parallel. So that makes it a trapezoid. Now, and that's it. That branch ends right there. Now we're going to follow our way through this one. Okay, now we go to a parallelogram. And a parallelogram basically tells us that both pairs of opposite sides are parallel. So my top and bottom are parallel, and my left and right, in this case, are parallel. That makes it a parallelogram. Okay, then from a parallelogram, we can go a couple of different ways. To the right here, we're looking at a rectangle, and a rectangle is a parallelogram with four right angles. The other branch of parallelogram is a rhombus. And a rhombus has four congruent sides. Okay? Now they're going to be parallel as well. Parallel opposite sides are going to be parallel. Same thing here. But this is special because of the right angle. A rhombus is special because the four sides are congruent. Now, kind of bringing all of these together is the square. A square has four right angles and four congruent sides. So it's kind of it brings in determining factors of rectangles and rhombuses all into one. Okay. So you should be able to classify these by knowledge and also just by looking at them as well, and know their characteristics. Okay, so here we go. Classifying triangles. We want to classify triangle LMN by its sides and by its angles. Okay, so the triangle has two sides that are congruent and three acute angles. So this is an isosceles, acute triangle. So sometimes we'll put both names with if it's asking us to do that. If it's asking just for one or the other, that's fine as well. So you want to be sure you read your question carefully and answer what it asks. Classifying quadrilaterals. Determine the best name for quadrilateral WXYZ and explain your choice. So if I look here, my opposite sides are marked as parallel, but the four sides are not congruent. Okay, so WXYZ is a parallelogram. All right, you have a few quick checks here to have ready. As always, please go through, answer them to the best of your ability, make note of any questions or concerns that you have,